button. Let me take care of this, okay? Everyone can see my screen or not? Let me share it again. Online students, please confirm.
It is visible.
It's visible. Okay, shall I go ahead?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not.
Yeah, what happened? Still there is a problem. If anybody is not able to see the screen, please rejoin the meeting again, okay? Because from my end, everything is good. Okay, yeah. So let me start again. So stored procedure means what? We will be creating a procedure to get some output or to return some output. Okay. So we will create procedure for that select statement which we will be using continuously. We are repeatedly using something. Okay, again and again we are using it. So to reduce this compile and parse time, we will create that stored procedure. That means suppose I am having one table or I am having my company's data from 2002 till 2024 or 25. Okay. So every time what I have to do, I have to just analyze the sales per month or per year. Got it? So every time what am I doing here? I'm writing here select statement, select a star or suppose select sales, comma, month from sales data. This is my sales data is a table, and from the sales data table, what am I doing? Every time I'm selecting sales and month. Every time I'm writing this. Almost in a day, I'm writing 5 or 10 times this query. Now this sales data is containing data from 2020, 2002 to 2025. That means it's a huge data. Okay. So if I'm writing this query again and again, and if I'm executing it, then 20% of total execution time. I'm hypothetically speaking, these are not the correct numbers. Okay. But you can say that almost 60 to 70% time goes in parsing and compilation, and execution takes place only 30 to 40% of time. Okay. So to give this data, sales and month, first it will parse the query. Parse the query means it will check whether any error is present while writing this query or not. Got it? Suppose if I forget here writing from, that means while parsing it got some error. So it will show that invalid syntax near sales data. Got it? So 20% of total execution time is given for parsing the query. Then 40% of time is given to compiling the query, and 40% of time is given to the execution of the query. That means if the same statement I am writing again and again, at least 5 or 10 times in a day, and if I am executing this query by writing the same thing, then what will happen? We are wasting our time, right? We are wasting this much time every time. So to save that time, what we will do, we will create one stored procedure. We will create one stored procedure. So once we created this stored procedure, and when we will execute that stored procedure again and again, then what will happen? It will save this 60% of time. Only execution time will take place. Got it? So while creating stored procedure, when we will execute that stored procedure once, that time only this 40% and 20% parsing and compiling time is given. But once we created this stored procedure, then every time whenever we will execute, only execution time will take. It will not take a time for parsing and compiling. So that way we can reduce the speed of execution. Got it? So why we will create stored procedure? What is outside? If someone is going there, then look at here. So by using this stored procedure, we are reducing the time for parsing and compiling. Okay. So that is the nutshell of whatever I have written here till now. Why, what, and where. Okay. Just give me a minute and stop sharing the screen. I want to turn off the notification of my Teams. Okay. So still I will explain you once why we will use this stored procedure. So SQL stored procedure are block or batch of SQL statement. That means stored procedures are created by using the SQL statements. They are executed together in a specific sequence to serve definite business purpose. So which can be reused as and when required, and it is accessible to everyone who has access to the database. Means who can access the stored procedure? Everyone can access the stored procedure. The one who will be having access to our database, he can access our stored procedure. Why? Because stored procedures are saved. Stored procedures are not the top of the query, those are the saved. That's why anybody who is having access to the database, they can use this stored procedure. So what are the stored procedure? A stored procedure can do whatever a normal TSQL statement can do, unlike functions which can only perform retrieval of data from tables. Now, by using this stored procedure, can we update the queries? Can we delete the queries? No. Stored procedure is used only to perform retrievals of data from given table. Stored procedures are not used to delete the query or delete the statement or update the table. Okay. Stored procedures are only used to perform retrieval of data from table. Now, where to use this stored procedure? It is created and becomes a part of the database. It is stored in the schema where it is created. The default schema, like other database object, is DBO unless we specify another schema where it should be created. That means all the stored procedures that we are creating, all the stored procedures will be stored in the database. So that's why they will become the part of our database, and it is stored in the database object called as DBO. Now everybody knows that where is this DBO, right? If I expand my database, then in the system database, we will see that in this master, we will get the DBO. Give it. Now, in the stored procedure, here we will get this system defined stored procedures. These are the system defines, and if I open this stored procedure. Here we will get the stored procedures created by our own end. Okay, and the stored procedures will be starting with dbo dot database object dot, unless we specify another schema where it should be created. Now, why we will use the stored procedure? First is the encapsulation. What is the meaning of encapsulation? Can anybody tell me? Okay, what it does? What encapsulation does? So it binds complicated business logic into a single unit without exposing the internal content. Okay. Then reusability. Stored procedures are reusable, can be called multiple number of times based on need by user having their execute permission on them. So while creating the stored procedure, what we will do, we will bind the business logic into a single unit. Okay. Now into a single unit means, like I told you here, if I want to view sales and month from sales data, and if I'm specifying any month here, I can write where month is equal to January, or wherein if I want to see for more than 1 month, I will write month in 1, 2, 3, 4. Got it? Yeah. So while creating this stored procedure, we will bind all the complicated business logic into a single cell without exposing the internal content. Second benefit is that reusability. Once we created the stored procedure, we can call that stored procedure n number of times. But only those can call who is having access to that database. If somebody else is not having the access to the database, they cannot call that stored procedure. Next, maintainability. The logic inside the stored procedure can be controlled and maintained from the centralized location. Execution plan cache. So this is the important point. So if somebody asks you, or in the interviewer, if the interviewer asks you the question, okay, why we will be using stored procedure? What is the benefit of using this stored procedure? Then you should tell these 4 points. First, encapsulation. It binds all the business logic together without exposing the internal content. Next, reusability. Once we created the stored procedure, we can use the stored procedure number of times. Just we need to have the access of that particular database. Third one is it will be easy to maintain the business logic inside it. And then last one is a execution plan. So if I'm executing the same query again and again, then it will take some time to pass the query. Then it will take some time again to compile the query, and then it will take some time to execute the query. Whereas if we created the stored procedure, only once it's compiled and passing time is consumed. Whenever I will be writing this stored procedure, only the execution time will take place, so that we can make our query or the procedure faster than 50 to 60% than the normal query. Okay. Yeah. So let's create one stored procedure. So to create stored procedure, we are having syntax called as create or alter. So whenever we have to create the stored procedure, we can simply write create procedure. Create procedure. Whenever I'm writing create or alter means if that procedure is not present, it will create a new procedure, and if it is present, it will alter the procedure. So I'm creating a procedure. So syntax is create procedure followed by procedure name. So like whenever we were creating the function, that time we were using fn small. Okay. Whenever we were creating the user defined function, we were using udm. So here, whenever we will create the stored procedure, use CSP. CSP means custom stored procedure. Why we are not using SP? Why we are not using SP? Because SP is a system defined stored procedure. We have seen that SP, then help, right? If we give that name, then we will get the metadata. If I use the SP underscore help text, then and followed by something, then what we will get? We will get the syntax return to create that particular query. So SP is already assigned for the system defined procedures. So this is the custom that we are creating. So that's why we will use here CSP underscore get data. Now this CSP underscore using is not matlab mandatory. It's optional, so that we or our team can understand that this is the stored procedure that we or our team has created. So that's why we will write here CSP underscore get data. Now I want to get data from particular table. That's why I'm creating a procedure called as get data. And next it will be followed by as, and in between begin and end, we will write our logic. Okay, so I'm writing here logic as a select star from employee. That means what am I doing? I want to view all the details from my employee table. So to get the details from my employee table, I am creating a stored procedure called as CSP underscore get data. So when I will select this and execute this, commands completed successfully. And whenever I want to view my complete table, I can simply write here EXEC. EXEC means execute. EXEC means execute CSP underscore get data, and you can see I'm getting all the details that are stored in the employee table. So now, whenever I want to view all the details from the employee table, I will simply write execute CSP underscore get data, and I will execute it. So it will take only how much time? 40%. Execution time only it will take place, because parsing and compilation is done while creating this stored procedure. Got it? Yeah. So write this query. Whose mic is on, please unmute yourself. Sorry, mute yourself. Okay, is it done? Shall I go ahead? Okay, so let's create or let's alter the stored procedure that we recently created. We created the stored procedure called as CSP underscore get data. Now, while altering this stored procedure, always use this DBO dot first. Always use this DBO dot first. So let me. Okay. Can you see here? We created the CSP underscore get data stored procedure and it got saved in our database under this programmability stored procedures. And while saving, it got one DBO dot at the start. That's why whenever we will alter, we will use DBO dot CSP underscore get data so that it will route to this location. Okay. But whenever we will execute it, while executing, we will simply write our stored procedure name. But while altering, we need to write dbo.csp underscore get data. Okay. So I'm altering here, so I can remove this create or alter procedure followed by dbo.csp get data procedure name as and end first as, then in between begin and end, we will write our logic. So what am I altering here? I'm only selecting employee ID, employee first name, employee last name, address from employee table. I'm not selecting all the columns. I'm selecting some particular columns. So I will alter it and I will execute it. Commands completed successfully. And now if I execute my stored procedure, you can see only employee ID, first name, last name, and address got stored here. Okay. So alter this stored procedure and view only particular columns. Okay, is it done? Yes. Yeah. So let's add one parameter here. Why we'll add parameter? Now what are we storing in this two stored procedure? We are storing this select statement and we are selecting the number of columns. So what I want to do here, I want to get the values for these number of columns only, but I want to specify the parameter. Specify the parameters means where employee ID is equal to 8, or where employee salary is equal to 1000, or where employee first name is equal to Dinesh. Getting my point? So here, are we adding any parameter? No. We are simply selecting all the records by choosing the column. Got it? So if I want to add any parameter, I can add the parameter. Okay. So let me alter the given store procedure. So I will write here alter procedure followed by the procedure name. Our procedure name is dbo.csp underscore get data. Now I am passing here parameter. Parameter means I will just simply pass the parameter value where employee ID is equal to 7. Then it will give me all the columns for employee ID is equal to 7. All the column values for the employee ID is equal to 7. The columns that I am selecting in between begin and end. I am passing the logic for this column between begin and end. So alter procedure followed by the procedure name. Then while declaring the parameter, I will write at the rate, and I am giving my parameter name as a employee ID, data type integer, and I am equalizing with 0. Equalizing with 0 means what am I doing here? I'm giving default value to a parameter, and that will make it optional. That means even if I'm not passing any value for this employee ID is equal to something, still it will give me some output there. Because I'm passing employee ID int is equal to 0, and this 0 is nothing but the default value to a parameter, and this default value to a parameter will make it optional. Make it optional means even if I am not giving employee ID, it will give me the records. Okay, so whenever I will not give the employee ID, it will give me all the records for this particular tables. But whenever I am passing the employee ID, it will give me record for that particular employee ID only. So what this 0 does then? 0 makes this employee ID parameter optional. Optional means if I am not passing any value in employee ID, still it will execute. And if I am passing any value, then it will give us the record for that particular value. Got it? Yeah. So this is how we can pass the parameter. We will write alter procedure followed by the procedure name that we want to alter. And in the simple brackets, we will write the parameter. Then we will start with as and begin. So when we start at begin, we will give our logic. So in the logic, what am I doing here? I am selecting employee ID from my employee table. I am using alias name as a EMP. So emp.employee ID, comma. Also, I am using the get employee full name function that we created in module 2 or module 3. Okay. So, comma dob.fn underscore get employee full name. And in the get employee full name, we had two parameters. First parameter was the first name and second parameter was the last name. So I'm passing here first name as a employee first name from employee column and last name as a employee last name from the employee table, and I'm giving that column name as a full name. Then after that I'm writing this address column and employee date of birth column. Okay, so we need to connect them from employee table. As I'm using here alias name EMP, so I'm writing here from employee as EMP. Okay, and if you see here, this employee date of birth column is present in which table? Employee date of birth table. Employee date of birth table. So what will I do here? I will write left join, and I will left join this employee table with this employee date of birth table, and I'm giving alias name as a EDOB to the employee date of birth table. Then whenever we'll perform the joins, we need to give the on condition, right? So I'm giving here on. EDOB means employee date of birth table, employee ID is equal to from employee table, employee ID, where now I'm passing here one parameter. Then I need to give some value to that parameter, right? So I'm giving the value where employee ID column from this employee table is equal to at the rate employee ID. So I'm equalizing this parameter with all the employee IDs that are present in my employee table. And also I'm writing here or. Or means if suppose it is not having the employee IDs that are present. So in my employee table, how many employees are there? 8 employee IDs are there. If suppose you are writing 11, means that is not present here in this employee ID, then or employee ID is equal to 0. If that is not present, then take it as a 0 so that it will make the condition false or true, and we will end our logic here. And let me execute this. So commands completed successfully. Now I will execute it. Execute CSP underscore get data, and I'm passing here parameter. So I will write here @employee ID is equal to 8. And if I execute here, you can see I'm getting all the records for where employee ID is equal to 8. I got first column as employee ID because I chose here. Second column as a full name, and to get the full name I used get employee full name function that I had created. Then next is the address, and last one is a employee date of birth. Okay. And what will happen if I write here 0? So whenever I'm writing here 0, it is making it optional so that it is writing or returning all the records that are present. What will happen if I write here 11? It's not giving any record because there are no records available for this employee is equal to 11. Got it? Yeah. So write this and let me know if there is any doubt. Create this stored procedure. Is it done? Shall I go ahead? Yes or no? No. Can I pass more than one parameter here? Yes or no? We can pass. We can pass n number of parameters. We can pass n number of parameters here. Okay. So what am I doing here? In the next example, what am I doing? I'm altering my stored procedure that I created here, get data. I'm passing here two parameters. First parameter I'm passing here @employee ID, giving data type integer and is equal to 0. That means I'm making this parameter optional. I'm making this parameter optional. Okay. And next, I'm giving another parameter @employee address, giving data type varchar, and I'm passing character length as 100. Now here I'm not equalizing with 0. That means it is a mandatory parameter. That means it is a mandatory parameter. Okay. And in the as and begin, starting with the as, in begin and end, I'm passing the logic. And while passing the logic, I'm selecting employee ID column. Then I'm selecting this full name, get employee full name function, and I'm passing employee first name, employee last name, and viewing it as a full name column. And I'm selecting here address. From which table I'm taking it? From employee table, and where I will be writing employee ID, that @employee ID here. Right. Yeah, emp.employee ID we can say. So where what am I writing here? I'm writing employee ID from this employee table is equal to @employee ID. I'm equalizing my parameter, or employee ID is equal to 0. That means I'm making it optional. That means I'm making it optional. And one more parameter I had given there, address is equal to @employee address. And let me execute this. Command is completed successfully. Now, whenever I have to view, if I wrote here CSP execute CSP underscore get data @employee address is equal to India, employee address is equal to India, then you can see I'm getting the value for wherever employee address is equal to India. Now, when I select employee address is equal to India and employee ID is equal to 6, it will return me the data for employee ID is equal to 6 and address is equal to India. What will happen if I wrote here address is equal to US? Because if you see here, for employee ID 6, address is here India, but I'm passing address is equal to US, so I'm not getting any record here. Because for employee ID 6, address is India there, not US, right? So whenever I will pass India, then only I will get that particular record. Got it? Yeah. Next, what will happen if I pass only, if I pass, okay, let me deselect this. Let me write it here. If I pass only employee ID, we will not get the records. Why? Because we are not making this employee address column as optional. But this employee ID column is optional. That's why employee ID column is optional. That's why even if I select only employee address is equal to India, I can get the record because this employee ID column is a optional, or employee ID parameter is a optional. But this address parameter is not optional. It is mandatory. So without passing this address column, this procedure will not execute. Got it? Yeah. So write this query. Don't write this comment. These comments I will explain you. Okay. Don't write this comment. Just alter this procedure and pass two parameters: employee ID and employee address, and make employee ID optional and address as a non-optional or mandatory. Is it done? Okay. Now, while creating stored procedure, if I want to see or view the syntax that I had used, then I can write sp underscore help text followed by that stored procedure name and execute it. Now you can see the complete syntax, whatever I had written here and executed together, complete syntax we can see here. Got it? So suppose what will happen? Suppose I modified this stored procedure. So I can add my date here in the comment. On this date, modified by Dinesh, and what he did, he created new stored procedure. After some days, if suppose on 20, John modified something, so modified to add salary column. Then again Dinesh came and explained the procedure. Got it? So while modifying any stored procedure, we can add those comment and we can execute it, and we can use this sp underscore help text csp underscore get data or the followed by the stored procedure name, and it will give us complete syntax written to create or to alter that stored procedure. Got it? So this is the use of sp underscore text function. Remember this function. Okay, got it? So here we will stop. I'm giving you this as a homework. Create or alter a stored procedure to set data. Now we created that to get data. Now we will create to set data. Okay, and set values. Now if you see, we are having values till employee ID 8 only, not for 9 and 10. So this stored procedure I had created to set a value if value for particular employee ID or record for particular employee ID are not present. So instead of giving it as a homework, we will see it tomorrow because this is important. Okay, how we can set data, we will learn tomorrow. After that, we will start with these views. Okay, so that's it for today. If anybody is having any doubts, please let me know. Else you can move. Online students, anyone having any doubt? No doubts? Okay, bye.